So I've got 5 things to speak about today. So 1, loneliness. 2, AFK, which stands for away from keyboard. 3, cleaning.
I thought it was the airport,
No.
but okay.
Yeah, it's JFK. An AI
Okay.
comment and option trading. So I'm going to spin the wheel, and maybe I'll edit in a wheel spin for the show. Yo.
I'm going to try something different today. I don't know if this will be a good thing or a bad thing, but we'll find out.
Well, first things first is like the recording started, so that's good. And secondly, I think I have the right audio now, so it should be coming through my microphone, which is good. I'm trying to download a spinning wheel application.
Oh.
To see if I can.
I'm trying to put you on the big screen so I can look straight
like
ahead, straight at the camera, and it'll make my life easier. It's amazing what blankets can do. I'm just throwing it over all the rubbish behind me. This is going to do loads of noise by me doing this. Okay, I'll have to ditch that idea. How's
that
it
works.
now? Can you hear me okay?
I think I noticed that I also turned up my volume on my microphone, so hopefully this week I'll be a little bit louder than other weeks, potentially.
Hopefully. I had my hair trimmed today, especially for the pod. Not really, but I'll say it's especially for the pod.
I should have noticed, but I've not been looking at the camera properly yet, so if I had been looking at the camera, then I'd be like, oh, very nice. You have to also speak at the same time that you spin, otherwise nobody will see you.
La 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 la.
Perfect.
There you go.
And you're on the green hype as well, which is good to see. I'm inceptioning you with the aquas and the greens. I'm wearing blue today, so I'm wearing your colour. Although red's red and yellow, and
this is I think turquoise.
Right.
Meant to be. It looks a bit
So we're
more
in the
green
aqua
now
world.
on the video image.
Right, I can't remember my password. Oh well, I'll leave it for now.
Apparently, Thingy-Bob's got new updates. Riverside.
Interesting. What kind of updates?
I don't know. I have instantly forgotten
The
what they all
teleprompter
are.
stuff.
But no, that apparently they brought out new updates. I spotted on YouTube on I think they're shorts.
Oh, okay.
Or maybe it's a long form video, but it was like a 2-minute long video of everything that they brought new. I did try and look at it slightly earlier, but then I forgot what it all was. I think some of it's branding. So now you can update a background color rather than inserting an image. So then you can select a color.
Yeah, they're all little improvements, which are good. Because I think even, down in the bottom, you can edit the name of the individual now and put a job title and all that stuff, which is good as well. Or like a title. So.
Oh, that was it. Yeah, you can do that in here now.
And I guess it's more so when you're doing like a live stream, because when I download the actual video, then you don't see any of that stuff because I edit it myself, don't I? I don't bother putting any names in.
I wonder if this live types it. I've just written co-host.
It's not updated from my side yet. Oh, there you go. Yeah, it came through.
Oh, we might be able to... Yeah, apparently you could add that I've forgotten about. And I think you might be able to edit it, so we might be able to change it to blue to match branding. Or
change the style of it. What I find is a bit annoying is they keep on saying like, cool, so we've upgraded to this version, which is like the AI version with all these AI tools. But then now they also want you to pay another $15 to get the branding ability or something. So they're still holding back little things, which is just a little bit like irritating. Just give me one price all in and just like bump me up to those tools.
Yeah, I think it is hard. It feels like they've added an extra, because I think it was free. Oh, I feel like I'm a bit delayed.
It's okay.
It was free, then it was paid, then it was business. But now they've added like a solo paid, a team paid, and then like a business.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Today I have 5 things for you, and I was like, I wonder if there's a way to do a wheel spin. But I can't download the app and my phone's taken. So is there like a online wheel spin?
There must be.
All right, there's an online wheel spinner. If you just Google online wheel spinner, there's one in Google, and I wonder if we can just change it to wheel size, and I need it to be 5 numbers. Okay, cool. All right. I'd like to be able to include this in the stream, but I don't think I'll be able to because I can't show it to you. Oh wait, maybe I can do it on my iPad.
You could do share screen.
Let me do it on my iPad by navigating to the website, and then we'll see it.
Okay. One thing that I'm surprised, I'll talk about my bugbearers of Apple. Why can't you do continuity camera with the iPad? Because technically my iPad is newer than my phone.
Yeah.
I would love to do continuity camera with the iPad, using it as the camera instead of my phone, so then I could actually use my phone right now, because that would be really helpful. Fair enough, I know it's people on the road assuming that you don't have the iPad with you, and it's just your laptop and your phone, but you literally can do everything else with the iPad. Why can't you do that one other item?
It's that lock-in.
Or that you can link it up to your watch and be like, oh, just like a camera that you can see on your watch. It's like, why can't I tap into that? It feels like they only do the ecosystem at certain points, rather than why don't you actually do the ecosystem to spread over everything, and then it brings more value to all the items again.
Write a strongly worded email.
Has that killed enough time?
No, it hasn't. There's so many different wheels that have like different settings, and sadly, the one that loads up in Google doesn't show properly. But because I can't open it to big screen, but nonetheless, in some ways, I kind of want you to spin the wheel. But we're going to spin the wheel, and we have 5 topics. So I'll just headline you in. But before we start, I'll just kick in with the intro. So roll the tape.
I feel like this is proper delaying right now. Me and you.
You're perfectly fine on my end, so I think you should be fine. And it's one of those things.
Oh, I wonder if it's the AirPlay. I wonder if it's fine on the laptop, but the AirPlay's slowing it down.
Oh, right, because I'm actually on your monitor, on your projector. Yeah. Let's run it. Like, we keep on having problems, but we still get there in the end, don't we? Don't be a doorstop. Welcome back to another episode of Don't Be a Doorstop. You're here with your regular hosts and co-hosts. Yeah, we're both hosts, aren't we? Dan Ryland and Tom Ryland. If you have not subscribed to our individual channels, jump over to Mr. Tom Ryland and Real Dan Ryland and subscribe, because we are basically, Tom is doing 100 videos in 100 hours, right, Tom? And then I'm doing...
I've already failed on that, okay. But yeah.
We'll come to that in a second. And then I'm basically doing my solo videos as well. So I've published 2. So how many videos have you got up there so far, Tom?
So I was hoping to do one before the pod, but I couldn't download the video because I was going to do a short instead of a long form video. And Riverside let me down whilst I was trying to slot it in before doing the pod. Shame. So I've still got one.
There's still enough time. Maybe before we produce this one, you publish it, so then it'll still look fine. So by the time this comes out, you will have 2 videos out of your 100, 98 to go, basically. So I've got 5 things to speak about today. So 1, loneliness. 2, AFK, which stands for away from keyboard. 3, cleaning.
I thought it was the airport.
No.
But okay.
Yeah, it's JFK. An AI comment. And option trading. So I'm going to spin the wheel, and maybe I'll edit in a wheel spin for the show, but then I'll have to make sure that it actually lands on the numbers that we talk about. So I've got in Google.
Could you not do screen recording?
Maybe I could, but it's so small. I'll need to switch to an app. So maybe I'll pretend that I'm pressing an app and it'll spin to a number, but I'll just do it here. So I'm going to spin the number. Number 5. So number 5 is options trading. So do you know about options trading, Tom?
I know it's some form of getting on the stock market, but that's as much as I know.
Yes, correct. So it's a financial instrument which is tied to the share price going up or down. And there's things called calls, which is a bet on the share price going up. And there's a thing called put, which is bet on the share price going down. And they have leverage. So if a share price goes up a small amount, then the leverage is like usually 1 to 5. So an option price will go, or the value of the option will go up a lot or go down a lot if the share price goes down. So they're kind of like exponentially more movement when there are lots of movements with share prices. And people typically buy them before earnings, which is when a company will declare if they've made more revenue this year than last year, or more revenue in particular industries or sections, or like departments of the business and stuff. And basically the US government obviously create policies which sometimes help businesses or hinder businesses. And the, like, I don't know what they're called in the States, but they're like members of parliament, right? They have to document when they've purchased shares and options. Not only do they have to document it, they have to document it if it's their spouse or if it's their children. So there's a lady called Nancy Pelosi, which is a very, very famous Democrat lady, and she has these documents which are called periodic transaction reports, PTRs. You can find them online; they're public, and all they are is just whether or not they've bought shares or sold shares. Now, people think it's her that's trading, but it's actually not. It's the husband. But people always think it's Nancy Pelosi. So there is a Twitter account that tweets out every time she's bought shares or sold shares, and they're tracking her her portfolio. And she's better sometimes than other companies or other ETFs, as it were. Her performance is better sometimes. So I'm like, cool, can I keep an eye on what she's purchasing or what she's selling? There is a delay in when they buy versus when they actually put in this kind of like transaction report. But could you track it to buy options and stuff? So, for example, she bought the husband bought a call for NVIDIA stuff, right? And has won massively because that was before it went up, and then it tracks, oh, it's gone up. So it's really fascinating. So the husband does option trading, and you can see exactly what options and what strike price and stuff that they've bought at, which is really interesting. Now, the UK have something similar when they have to declare financial interests, but they're not necessarily declaring that they're buying and selling options or like doing trades at certain points. You'll know from Company House that they own different parts of companies, but you won't necessarily see what their actual individual like portfolio looks like. So if you're into options trading, if you're into stocks and shares, trying to find these periodic transaction reports to kind of give you an idea as to what's going to happen in the market due to like policy is like an interesting tactic, essentially.
That's interesting because that name, I've already forgotten who.
Nancy Pelosi.
Someone said how they're buying stocks, the same stocks that she buys, but I didn't recognize the name whatsoever, and I didn't understand what they were talking about. But that makes more sense now. What they were talking about it was a podcast, and it was a bunch of American. I thought it was more of a comedy podcast, but it must have been just a clip out of whatever they were talking about. They were talking how it mirrors what she buys, but it's probably
So there are AIs that mimic her thing. So the Twitter account that's running and tweeting out what she buys is matched to a trading platform, I think, that automatically does it on your behalf. So when they see she does something or the partner does something, or like the husband, it will buy it for you. And it also tells you roughly between a range. So it'll say like between 500K and 1 million, like Apple shares have been bought, or like Apple options with this particular strike price and this particular expiry date, because usually options will expire and also degrade over time. So if there is no sharp movements of the stock, then essentially it starts to get devalued as time goes on, because they usually have like a week expiry or a month expiry, or you can have longer ones, but usually in the platforms that you get, they're like a particular set time. So yeah, if you're interested in options trading, I use Plus 500. It only has a subset, so you can't choose any company. You can choose like 5 or 6 out of the big 5 or 6 companies. You can purchase calls and puts.
So have you changed that? Because weren't you on a different
platform?
So
I was on free trade. So that would be for generic, just buying shares and specifically ETFs. However, for like option trading, ETFs, free trade don't do ETF. Don't do options. So that's the kind of like one of the platforms that you can use to buy options. There are others. I'm not sure if Trading 212 does it as well, but again, caveat, like just be willing to like lose all your money basically if you're going to do it.
Because I think I did have free trade for a little bit just to trial and mess about with stuff, but then I got trade 212. Only because it says that it has a section that you can basically have fake money to trial
The functionality.
I guess it's like turning the functionality into a game to figure out what works and doesn't work, and it gives you that, I guess, more playful way of doing it. But I've never actually got around to doing it. But that's what I thought was really a very clever way to someone that doesn't understand it, is could you just trial with different companies to know what you're winning or not, in a clever way of logging your, I guess, portfolio.
Yeah, it's a good way to learn. So many different trading accounts have like a demo setup where it's fake money. So they'll give you like 40K to play with, and you can use that to learn and kind of understand and kind of do the kind of like gut guesses of whether or not something's going to go up or down. I recently did buy an option, a call option for Apple before the event, which then I sold it too soon. So I sold it at a loss. But if I would have held on, the next day it rocketed up. So I'm like, it's a shame, because when I literally prayed before the event started, and I felt I heard the word hold. So I should have held it all the way and then prayed just before closing it out, because that could have also said hold. And if I would have held, then maybe I would have been, well, no, I definitely would have been up. I sold too soon, thinking like, cool, the event's happened and gone. Like, nothing's moving.
So how much, do you know the percentage of how much you'd have gained on that?
I think it went up like 1,000%, or something insane like that. It went up like a lot. But obviously I came out before it happened, because I was like, cool, it's just going to carry on going down because people are unimpressed with the Apple AI stuff. And everybody was saying, typically you buy the hype beforehand and then like sell it before it happens. But I kind of like came in late, hoping that it would happen in the event. But this is why you got to be willing to lose.
But I think that's the thing, is I think where it sometimes does a bit of a boost is when they release it to the public a couple of days later, and then the public then find out actually how intricate all the things that they didn't mention. And sometimes there are some hidden gems that you're like, oh, this is way more useful than it actually sounds like. They've left stuff out, which then I guess gets another bump.
Yeah, it's always difficult to know between like the typical kind of like the typical day-to-day investor.
I could have took a cut on that.
Oh, there you go. Yeah,
that was my advice.
You've got
wasn't
a
it?
cut on zero. Yeah, so minus. But now I'm like waiting for the next event. The next WDC is obviously in a year's time. We obviously again have like the earnings reports, but typically the earning reports are a bit like flaky, so it's a little bit harder. But there you go, lesson learned. Pray before you sell.
I can't quite tell if it'll go. Yeah. Have you heard about the latest? I don't know how true it is. I've just heard it on socials. The latest, is it patent? A patent or whatever you call it? And they're basically looking to see if you can do brain scanning with like AirPods and stuff like that.
Oh, interesting.
Which I just thought was really interesting. It's like if they could tap into when you're focusing or not focusing or whatever, and mapping that with Siri 2.0, it'd be so fascinating. It's like, you're really tired. Your Apple Watch's heart rate's going down, so go for a nap now. I've closed the curtains. Right, go to bed. And it's like, in a weird way, but having so much technology and information, I wonder if it'll pull away from the human experience of just figuring it out and test and trialing, which I guess is a good thing if you want to be like an elite athlete. But to some extent, it'll be a high performance prison, because it'll be telling you what you need and what to do. And I guess for people that like to hand over that control to something else, they'll be absolutely loving life, because it'll tell it what to cook, eat, sleep, whatever. But those that like to wing it and to like, I guess the element of fail and those types of things. I like how the lights just randomly turned on. I've obviously said something to trigger it. Would really struggle with that dynamic. So it'd be a very interesting shift if they can do that.
Yeah, makes sense. Cool. Yeah, it's because patents are all public, aren't they? So if you're able to see them, then hopefully that will give you direction, because everybody's looking for some sort of quote unquote signal. right? Some signal that something's going to go up or go down and so forth. But yeah, right. Let's spin the wheel again. I now need to turn it down to 4 numbers, don't I? Oh, wait. Yeah, 4 numbers. But if I get a different, it might not go in order, but let's see. Cool. Let's spin. All right, number 1. Cool. So number 1 was loneliness. I've realized there's a significance in realizing that you're not alone, which isn't that Liverpool's like song that you'll never walk alone?
You'll never walk
which
alone.
I think understanding that you're not the only person going through something is probably one of the most beneficial starting points to a journey of like healing or like resolve, right? Realizing that you're not alone. So I was like, could you have an app idea, which essentially is like highlighting the fact that you are not alone? So for example, if you had like a mental health app where you're logging your emotions, could it also say like, hey, don't worry, 5 other people have said that they're feeling this this week, or like 5 other people have felt this the same. So how could we take the you are not alone concept, which is essentially you're not the only one going through this, and that gives you some sort of resolve or some sort of tranquility or like a little bit of peace in the journey that then you will proceed to do. And I'm like, could there be some sort of integrated like, hey, you're not the only one that's struggling. So for example, even in fitness apps, I recently downloaded this calisthenics thing, right? And I've literally not done any of them because I just haven't had time to do them.
Yeah.
So could it be like a notification, but like, don't worry, 500 other people are struggling to do it too. And then I'd be like, ah, cool. And then I don't feel like guilty. Does it create an action afterwards? No, because I've still not done it. But any ideas around that realm, basically?
Yeah, it's funny how motorbikes just passed and there's like saws going on. I can literally hear everything at the moment. Hopefully they're not cutting the grass because I might need to.
Don't worry about it. It all gets cut out later, so it's fine.
Yeah, I think it is an interesting dynamic. I don't know. I guess if you could create a pact, like, I'm really struggling to start, but I'm going to try to start to tomorrow. And then you get people to vote in to be like, yes, I'm going to start tomorrow. Because I guess it's the how can you tap into the accountability element of someone saying, I'm going to get up at 5. And then how do you, without them, let's say, sharing a phone number and texting and calling to be like, oh, you're up at 5 o'clock in the morning to do that run. It's like, how can you be like, I'm going to do it at 8 o'clock tomorrow. Then someone's like, puts in like a hand up, like, I'm going to do it as well. And then maybe it's whoever starts it, does it, then you get a notification to be like, well, Jeff, who put his hand up, has done it now. So then it sort of, I guess, eggs you on to be like, okay, I'll need to do it after work because I didn't do it this morning.
Yeah, integrated into fitness apps is good. There's something called, a friend of ours does a load of running, and I think there's an app called like Strada or something like that, which is like, Strava. Is it Strava? Yeah, which is a running,
I think so.
Like you blend running with like social. So you can say like, oh, such and such did this run, this 5K run, and you're like, I want to beat that person because I saw their time and I saw they were able to run more. And I think like the gamification of something where people are pretty proactive, that's like a good thing. But I agree. Like, again, this is just like a feature that you would integrate into multiple apps, right? It's not necessarily a singular app, but if there's something that you're not alone. Yeah. I remember somebody,
I think with the Strava stuff, it's good if you're competitive and got that drive. But I guess the topic of loneliness is dealing, I'm assuming, with people that are more likely to be like the competition is
crushing,
like just getting up. Yeah, it's crushing you, but it's like, actually, it's how do you create a competition to be like, no, I'm not going to lie and watch Netflix for 5 hours. Let me do 4 hours. Now let me do 3 hours. It's like, what is an achievable thing rather than, oh, your friend that's killing it in life has done another 5K. I feel worse. It's like, no, actually, how do you hold the accountability to be like, I'm going to stop scrolling for 5 minutes less a day or whatever. It's like, what is that type of element of engagement, of working with people that want to better themselves, but you're not working with the extreme sort of athletes or winners of life. It's you creating a pool of it's as if you're trying to practice swimming, but in the shallow end, and then you're building up to the deep end rather than work like doing your swimming regime around someone that can swim around the world or
Yeah.
whatever.
It reminds me of this is more on the kind of accountability side. Someone was like, I'm going to do this thing, and I have this friend that if I don't do it, then I have to pay him £5. And I think there was like a,
And that friend is
yeah,
rich
yeah.
now.
And I think there was an app that kind of facilitated that. So you would commit £5, and if you did not do the task, it would send that £5 to friend A. And if you did the task, it would give it back to you. You know, I'm like, that's a great kind of like, again, incentive, accountability, and using something that you don't want to lose. So, like, for example, money. However, yeah, you're right. This again still is within the category of like, you're reasonably good, like at the whole competition kind of spurs you on approach. But yeah, I thought the you are not alone. Could that be a feature that you embed into apps to kind of give you more reassurance that it's kind of like removing the pressure of hustle culture? So if it's like it's all right, like you know, any sort of stats, like you know, I think there's a stat somewhere that like 80% of the stuff on Spotify is just like one track or something like that, right? Like most of the artists on Spotify, they've just published one track. So if you knew, oh, I'm a part of like the 80% with one track, and so that means if I just do 2 tracks, I'll like bump into the next realm. You know, if I bump into the next realm, so it's like whatever that stat is to decrease the pressure, to kind of encourage you to keep going, or to bring that perspective that you're less kind of like you're kinder to yourself. I thought that was like a really interesting thing to think about.
Yeah. Plus, I guess it's the difficulty of where we're heading with, to some extent, culture is not wanting any negative emotions or negative feelings. And actually, it stops us from learning how to actually navigate when those feelings or thoughts come along. It's like if you're trying to constantly push down sadness, grieving, loneliness, and all these topics, it sort of becomes bigger as time goes on, and then it'll hit you harder rather than going, oh, I remember when I felt alone when I was younger because I didn't have a phone, and then I figured out how to connect in that moment. Oh, that gave me more encouragement and more ideas for when I get older. I guess it is creating that, removing the stigma that it's like, oh, you're working against someone that's really competitive. If, let's say, you're lonely and you want to do something, it's like, how do you meet the need of that person to be like, oh, it's okay to be alone, but then here are the tools to step away with it, like try and catch up with a friend or try and do that. It's like that. Do you remember the meter that I tried? The mood meter that I tried to create that I've not finished yet. And it's like you tap on it. It's basically a way of you figuring out what you're feeling, only because I've struggled to sometimes feel like I'll be like, oh, I don't know what this feeling is. So you basically tap through a section of like, do you feel low or high, like high energy or low energy? Do you feel really sociable or not sociable? And then it'll go and give you more words and intricate, I guess, give you more vocabulary to what you're feeling. And then from that, it will then be like, how do you basically ride the waves of, like, if you've got high energy that you want to get stuff done, how do you ride that to then basically get tasks around the house done or get work done and be productive? And then if it's low waves, it's like, how do you then go just to a neutral space? Like, how do you process like sadness or pain or whatever to then get to a place of, you've got the holistic, you have tools for when you're in a high place, neutral place or low place. But yeah, it's sort of, I guess, giving people tools to know how to walk through it rather than to plaster it with plasters.
Exactly.
Cover it with plasters.
And perfect segue. So I've spun the wheel again, and it's landed on 3. And this ties perfectly to what you were just saying. There is an AI company that essentially integrating AI within call centers to make angry customers sound calm. And this comes down to the people in call centers feel that like sometimes there are hostile customers, right? So like, let's say aggressive customers that are demanding unrealistic things. And that takes its toll on customer support people. So they're using AI to make those angry customers sound calm when they're on a phone call. So this is a tweet that I saw earlier in the week, and somebody commented on it saying, in a negative sense, they didn't like the fact that that was suppression of emotion. right, on the customer's behalf. And really, that should be something that's addressed so they don't get angry, right? So the deeper root should be fixed. However, I feel that because it's explicitly saying hostile customers with unrealistic requests, right? I'd be like, there is no need for those people to be allowed to kind of like do the waterfall thing, right? Somebody shouted at them, so they will shout at somebody else, and they will shout at somebody else. And if it happens to be the customer support person, they can't do much except for create a ticket and send it up the food chain, right? So I'm pro AI being used to calm people down because the angry person is still being angry, so they're venting and getting it off their chest. However, I feel that there's probably a better way to emotionally regulate than shouting at a customer service report, a support person.
Yeah, you're like, let me pass you on to this. What is it? Manager, but really it's like an AI agent who's like trained as a therapist.
Yeah, I mean, they are ultimately going to be AIs, so you can be angry at an AI. However, I don't think it's necessarily like the right space to be like angry at another human. But it obviously depends. Like we're talking variation of things here. If you like were calling the bank and you just lost your money, of course you're going to be angry. But it's a case of like trying not to direct it at the specific customer support person, right? Like being hostile or whatever. It reminds me of those. Have you seen those like wrecking rooms? I'm not sure if they're called wrecking rooms, but
yeah, where you smash
I'm like, maybe that should be like a healthier way to like disband like anger by just smashing up a TV or something. You know, it'd be pretty easy to do.
I wonder if actually instead of being on, because I guess what frustrates people the most is the music and just sitting there and wasting your time. I wonder if you had like the latest ChatGPT with that emotion in its voice to talk to you whilst you're waiting, to be like, how's your day? I'm really annoyed because I lost my money. Oh, that must be really hard that you lost your money. I really hope that our customer service can help. I'm sure they can help you by doing this, this, and that. And it gives you vocabulary of what things to potentially say. I guess coaches you to some extent to be like, tell them that you have lost your money and that you need it for some wedding tomorrow and it's 10 grand or whatever. So you might need to go to a bank and visit and your local banks are this or whatever. And it's like, I wonder if it'll de-escalate because you're not basically, what is it, ruminating? Is that the word? In your stress and angst and frustration, you're talking it out, getting coached to be like, oh, I feel better now. I know what to ask for. I know how to say it, especially for people that don't like calls. They might have practiced the backwards and forwards with someone on the line. So then be like, right, you're in a call. I want this, this, and this, or whatever.
I think another thing about fixing the processes, for example, if you want to cancel something, you'll phone this first number, you'll be on hold. They say you've called the wrong number, send you to a second number, and then the call might drop. So I think the whole like passing people around, you're in the wrong department stuff. Like one, if we're talking about fixing the system, one, I think like empowering singular individuals to do like every possible outcome rather than like, oh, that's not my department, I'll pass you on to the business team or the sales team or whatever, or like the cancellation team. And also like when people want to cancel, just like let them go, right? Don't say like, okay, we'll send you to these other people. And then they try and hype you up to be like, oh, we can give you this discount or whatever. So the other thing that I've seen once is like, I type in my number and then they'll give me a call back when somebody's ready to do it. So I don't have to be waiting. And I found that so much easier. Or even just like human chatbots. Like, sorry, that was a weird way to phrase it, but like humans through a chat function is, I think, quicker because the human could probably do multiple chat windows at the same time and be able to resolve the thing. And then I don't have to phone anybody up. But
because what I do like about the leave your number, you get a call back, you're not waiting around. But what I don't like about it, what I find hard, is then I'm on edge expecting a call, so then I can't focus. So really, it's like, shame you can't be in a call, and then it lets you know on your phone rather than tell you in your ear because you get bored once you've heard it, is your 10th person and estimated time is 50 hours or 10 hours or 5 to 50, whatever, because then that gives you a gauge of, do I stay on or not vibe? Or is there a way of you leaving your number, but then you get a text like 10 minutes before to be like, you're next in queue or whatever. So then you have that right, I could prepare to get all my notes for whatever topic it is to talk about. If you're changing your, I don't know, your car insurance, for example, that you're like, great, I've got all my notes, I've got my head switched on to the next thing. I'm going to get called in the next 2 minutes.
Yeah, that makes absolute sense. Especially when at the time that they call you, you're actually busy or you miss it. So then you're like super annoyed. But then they should just like call you again within that time frame, because you don't know, because the number's going to turn up on your phone and you just won't know, right? So long as they don't like forget about you and they try and call you a little bit later on or something. But it all depends on the urgency of the issues and all that stuff. But yeah, hopefully AI agents that are like fully empowered to be able to do far more actions would be better. Like, for example, like, you know how Monzo, like if you want to change your address, you can do it in the app. You don't need to call somebody. Whereas other things are like, oh no, you need to speak to the bot, or like you need to speak to somebody on the phone. So like empowering people to be able to do functions themselves is like one thing to kind of like alleviate the pressures on having to have a call center or so forth with even if it's running with bots. Right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Down to our two things here. So I'm going to spin the wheel again. We're on number 1. So AFK. So AFK stands for away from keyboard. I hope it does, because I've been saying that, and I think it does. And so I was on Twitch recently, and I noticed that because I've watched Sidemen Inside, I now have been introduced to Angry Ginge. I quite like his stuff, so I've been following him. Because I've also been Twitch streaming, I've noticed that he's also live right now. So I click on it, and I realize it's not him. It's his away from keyboard channel. So in the description, it says, don't subscribe here, subscribe to my main channel. Remember ages ago when we were talking about YouTubers creating a second channel? And that's one way to just like double your money straight away, because chances are like maybe a third of your audience, maybe a quarter of your audience, like maybe a half of your audience will move over. And then you're able to basically monetize in 2 areas, because if somebody's really wanting your content, they'll watch it twice, right? Over here and over here for the behind the scenes stuff, which I think is great. And I didn't realize that streamers are essentially doing the same. So that's one clever thing, because if you're being introduced to somebody for the first time, you might not be that interested in like, you might not be that bothered about chatting to the individual. It's more so chatting with the other people that are in the group, right? Because sometimes streamers aren't always conversing with you as you're talking. They're seeing like general trends in the conversation, right? And I thought that'd be a really interesting thing to be like, could we set up like an AFK Don't Be a Doorstop live stream that was essentially playing through a playlist of Don't Be a Doorstop episodes, and then people would basically be in the comments essentially talking amongst themselves while this video is being played through. Thought, again, it's a clever way to duplicate and provide multiple interactions at different time zones and different things, because right now he's sleeping and making money, right?
Because it's sort of said it's like what you said, isn't it? Is sometimes when you're creating stuff and don't have a big following, it's just creating a bank. So when someone does come across you, that they've got a bank of content to binge. That was it. A binge content sesh or whatever.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the thing, is you're creating that, I guess, for people that prefer to binge or have it on in the background, that you're creating that the most easiest way possible to some extent.
Exactly. So I don't know exactly how they're doing it such, because I wonder if it's his computer and he's got just a video running and he has that as the primary screen in OBS and it's just streaming to it, or whether or not there is some service that allows you to do that, which just takes old streams and basically reproduces them.
Because I guess a lot of it's retention based. You'll get paid. So if you're on 24/7, and as long as someone's on there, to some extent, your retention analytics will be huge.
It's similar to these TikTok shops. There's TikTok shops that are potentially being run by AIs, so they could be selling 24/7. And I'm like, that's again a very interesting kind of like concept. It's like those late night, like call now to buy these like new mops that suck up everything for like all that stuff, like the late night sales stuff. That's happening. The modern version of that is 24/7 on a TikTok shop.
Because one thing I find fascinating is I bumped into, I heard about how, I think it was like more in America, that they'd have screens with the prices on, like in McDonald's or whatever. And basically, if they were low down on a certain product, that they would just slowly up the price. And recently I went to Aldi, and I'm pretty sure they've changed. Instead of now having paper, how much the price is, they're mini screens. And I was like, it's so fascinating because it's basically food might become its own mini stock market of, right, we've got loads of bread this week, so it's 50p. Oh, end of the week, there's hardly any left. Right, it's fiver now for these bread. So if you're desperate, then you'll buy it or whatever. I just find it so interesting of that. I don't really know why I've gone to this topic switch. I guess it's that, engagement element. It's really
that ties in perfectly to like a couple of things I spotted this week. So one is leftover food, and two is like knowing if something is in stock or not. I personally don't like the experience of going to a shop and seeing that it's out of stock, but there is no like stock numbers anywhere. However, if you do essentially like Deliveroo, so recently I tried Deliveroo from a supermarket, and they have these things called like Hop or something, which is an individual like warehouse where you have food on the shelves, and they just stack it all into a bag, give it to the driver, and the driver drives off. So I'm like, what if that was just like a robot warehouse, right? So that is a robot warehouse that knows exactly what's in stock. So in the Deliveroo app, it could be live, right? So it knows, oh, there's 3 left, there's 5 left, whatever. You could then purchase it. It puts it all into a bag for you and then gives it to the driver. The driver then does it. At some point, it'd be like, gives it to the drone then flies off and delivers to you. But
drops your eggs on the floor.
Yeah, I think that is a great, like, I think using robotics in kind of like warehouse and stock management stuff to give you live streams of like if it's in stock or not. Because what sometimes happens is like, you'll go to Morrison's, it's not there. So, for example, like one of those things is like lactose milk, right? Lactose-free milk. I go to Morrison's, it's not there. You go to this place, it's not there. You go to this place, oh, it's there. Well, if there was some connected way of seeing that, then I would have saved time. Or more than anything, just order your stuff online and don't even bother going to the shop, right? Of course, it does mean that those shop people are going to be like restockers and engineers rather than actual kind of like customer service people, because we already have the self-checkout stuff. So I thought that was interesting. And then the second thing is there's an app that you can purchase like late night food, or like, you know, hotels will have a breakfast, and then after the breakfast they've got a bunch of food that they kind of like need to get rid of. So you can pay for like a package of food that's like random all sorts from this like hotel that was the breakfast stuff. And I'm like, that's very clever, because that's like, that stuff is going to get thrown out. So you might as well put a cheap market on it. So I think like Greg's does it. I think Starbucks does it.
I think I've come across it.
And I'm like, oh, that's such a clever thing. Again, if you want like cheaper food, of course, it's going to be random. So like, you don't want to be eating cakes all the time, right? Or like bakery stuff all the time. So it's a bit of a balance. But I thought it's a great thing to implement into stock management and stuff, and try and get more money on your on the things you're selling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I do find it hard with food waste, because I find that we're quite good at eating our stuff, and I think not in all areas, but I know particularly in North Wales, you have to put your food in a food bin to sort of recycle it if you're not using it. But I find it hard if we forget about an item in the fridge and then you have to bin it. It really, it's one of those things that grinds my gears, because it's like, it's such a shame that we can waste so much food, even for people like us that try our best to use everything we can once we buy it and try not to have too much stock. It is one of those things that's quite tough to manage, that it would be really interesting that if you can get the shops to manage food waste well, but then also the individuals, it'll definitely help society once you can figure that sort of calculation out through apps or systems or whatever.
You're lucky enough to have food waste bins. We down here in London don't have food waste bins. So that's one thing that should be implemented. The second thing is like, you know, those boxes, like food boxes you order, and it's a particular meal and it has exactly the right ingredients. So for example, onions, you don't always, you buy a bag of like 5 onions, 3 onions, or whatever, you might only need 1. So yes, you could purchase 1 at a time, but then you think, oh, it's more expensive, so I'll buy 3. But then when you come to ordering these meal prep things, it gives you the exact same measurements, for what you require for the meal. And I think that is one good way to eliminate food waste in like having preset meals. So for example, the stuff that I eat is like, is all in one box. You either shove it in the oven or shove it in the microwave. There is no waste unless I don't eat the portion, right? If I eat less of the portion size. So whether or not that is a good way of doing it. So like we've measured this, this is the right quantities for these meals, and you'll be fine. So long as you cook the meals. If you don't cook the meals, then there's waste, right?
That would be really interesting if a supermarket was like, right, everything is a flat rate. So if you buy 1 or buy 6, they're the same amount rather than it getting discounted. It would be interesting then to be, would people buy 4 individual because they know that they'll only use 4 rather than 6? So actually it stops the food waste because the customer's thinking about the money rather than just the saving. It's going, actually, I only need 4. So then you get to sell those extra 2 rather than 2 of them going to the bin just because you're like, well, I've sold all 6, so it doesn't bother me. Yeah. It would be a very interesting dynamic to see how people would engage or disengage with that and go, oh, I prefer to buy 6 just in case at a cheaper rate because I might use it.
Yeah, funnily enough, it's like you're kind of caught between a rock and a hard place because right now somebody's buying all those things, which means trickle down. You're providing 4 onions or whatever, right? And those four onions are being paid for. Whereas if it was like, cool, only buy what you need and everything is priced the same. So if you buy 4 onions, each onion is priced the same as buying 1 onion. Then it'd be like, that means people are buying less, which then means that these farmers have like it's so difficult because we build it in a particular kind of like capitalist-ish kind of way. And with the marketing all blended in with like, I remember once saying, when it's like Kit Kats and it's like, here's 2 for free. It's actually like they're not for free. It's actually the same price as buying like 2 packs, but they've just done it because of marketing so they can sell more, right? But yeah, it's all those blended into one is like a bigger issue. But yeah, food waste is a fascinating one for sure. All right, last.
So we're on
our last one, so I don't even need to spin the wheel for this one. I just need to remember which one it was. Oh yes, cool. Cleaning companies. Simon Squibb is somebody that's on TikTok and stuff about asking people what your dream is. I probably mentioned that guy before. And recently he found 2 guys that run a cleaning company, and their tagline is, we clean where no one else cleans. And I thought that was a clever thing. So one, they're selling their cleaning services, which is cool and standard. But another clever thing, which is done in the grass cutting world as well, is they'll do videos cleaning stuff. Now, they might be paid for that stuff or they might not be paid, right? It doesn't matter. But you then can subscribe to keep on seeing them clean stuff that no one else will clean. So you're not even a service user. You're just admiring their kind of like talents and want to see more of it. In the same way with grass cutting. Grass cutting is done for free because the guy is making money off the actual content being viewed, so he can do it for free. And I'm like, oh, I didn't notice that people were adding in subscriptions. So, for example, you could subscribe to their Patreon or Twitter. I don't know exactly what mechanism they have in play, or even TikTok. I'm not sure if TikTok has subscriptions yet, to see more of these videos of them cleaning, and you don't even hire them to clean. However, in like months' time, when you need to clean, and you need a particular project, let's say you're doing you're leaving a flat or leaving a house or whatever, you need to do a full clean, you'll think about those guys because you've seen them cleaning stuff, right? And you've built that trust. So I thought subscriptions to see content about cleaning, so interesting.
Fascinating.
And yeah, people are doing it with grass cutting, aren't they? And it's the whole it's the whole like calming content. It's very lethargic, kind of like calming stuff. Similar with people when they like restock. Have you seen people on TikTok like restock with me? So they stock their fridges with like drinks and sweets and stuff. And I'm like, this is so like American because everything is like, here's 5 Coke cans and here's like a bunch of sweets, and or they do their kids' meals and whatever. I find it very, very fascinating. So I was like, very clever tagline. We'll clean stuff that no one else will clean. So it gives you that like incentive to be like, oh, I wonder what they are cleaning, right? So very, very clever, enticing. So there we have it. This week we've bashed through 5 different topics and ad-libbed on top of that. So until next time, hopefully next time you'll have a 3rd video because we're going to stay with the accountability. I think that's working well for me. I've just squeezed it in, but it doesn't need to be a 3rd video. It could be just a 3rd output. So that makes sense.
You just squeezed it in. I thought you started your Twitch. I feel like you've run ahead of
Yes.
me.
As in, like, I wanted to do a second video because I'm trying to do them as videos rather than just output.
Okay.
But yeah, I have been streaming and like enjoying doing just something different. Jump over to my channel to hear more about that. So that's it.
Good.
Thanks so much again for giving some of your time. If you've not subscribed, please do turn on the notification bell because we randomly upload them at different times. So then you'll get to see when they're up. And yeah, that's it. Any final thoughts?
I feel like we should get some more comments, but I don't know how to engage the audience. I guess it's what do you want us to talk about, or what's our thoughts on certain topics?
Yeah, if you've got any question for us.
Tech or business.
Yes, agreed. So if you've watched it, it should be like, if you've watched it, just put 1 in the comment. Just type the number 1 and press enter. Like, cool, we see you now. So
yeah. What's the bare minimum comment you can leave?
Yeah, what's a funny 1-letter comment that you can leave? Or an emoji comment. Leave just emoji comments for us to laugh at. It will give us the encouragement to keep going. So, and until next time, keep hammering those nails. Bye for now.